So the big story around the Kenyan authorities has to do with a meeting currently going on in Washington, D.C. between delegates from Kenya and the American authorities. They started yesterday. It's a bilateral trade talks. The Kenyan talks are taking place as the rest of the continent is head-scratching over the July 1st, 2020 suspended date for the takeoff of the continent's free trade agreement, or AfCFTA. So I have George BODO, a public analyst and director of research and analytics at CALLSTREET in Nairobi. We have to chat over this evening. Welcome, George, to the show.
Thank you, Boasson.
It's good to see you.
How are you doing?
Great. I'm doing great. So what are you Kenyans looking to secure from the ongoing bilateral trade talks with the United States? We all know that President Trump loves bilateral trade and he doesn't like multilateralism.
That's true, but I think we need to provide some context. I think that the WTO structures allow for the rights and obligations allow for, as it stipulates, non-discrimination, market access, and transparency. These are all dictations that are coming from WTO trade arrangements. And as you know, a lot of criticism have come alongside WTO that's becoming more and more weak. However, I think that countries are allowed to bypass some of these rights and obligations through two mechanisms. One is regional trade agreement, which Kenya is part of within the EAC. Kenya is part of the EAC regional trade agreement. And the second thing is an enabling clause. Essentially, an enabling clause allows a more powerful, a developed nation to have a preferential trade negotiation with a developing nation. And a classical example of an enabling clause is AGOA Act, which essentially allows unrestricted access of textiles originating from developing countries, including Kenya, by the way. And that the regional trade agreement, the assumption here is that the premise here is that countries are supposed to present a unified and negotiating approach when they're negotiating trade terms. And in this case, by the way, one of the biggest puzzles is that Kenya is negotiating a trade deal with the United States while being a member of the EAC RTA, which is actually not the ideal position. Kenya is supposed to actually, the EAC is supposed to present a unified negotiation document, and Kenya is not supposed to go alone. By the way, that's one of the puzzle about this negotiation. Kenya is not supposed to negotiate alone. They were supposed to present an EAC position.
But again, when you look at the bigger AfCFTA, which Kenya was one of the signatories, so how do this fit into the broader Pan-African trade, whose deadline for implementation was suspended July the 1st, just a couple of days ago, and moved on to early next year?
I think the way I look at the Continental Free Trade Agreement, it's supposed to protect member strengths. It's supposed to, Kenya is well known to be producing high quality tea. It's supposed to protect Kenya's tea business, right? I think that, and many other countries that have this unique proposition in terms of trade, are supposed to protect each country's unique proposition by creating a common market. But I think that, for instance, Kenya, for instance, going directly to the United States, it doesn't all go well with the Continental Free Trade Agreement, to the extent that it shows that each country is still keen to protect, that selfish approach, to protect its own market and its own trading power. So I think that it doesn't. There's a dislocation here, there, by the way, boss, that Kenya is still actively, and many other African countries would still go to negotiate individual trade agreements. By the way, the United Kingdom has just exited the European Union Common Market, and now they will be looking to negotiate individual trade agreements, including African countries. The other day, we were informed by the State House that Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta had a phone call with the British Prime Minister, and the main purpose of the call was to see how they can jumpstart a trade deal with the United Kingdom. So it's now we're talking about the United States. The next trade deal is going to be the United Kingdom.
George, I'm going to ask you one very hard question. And this is the question. Do you think this, what Kenya is currently doing, signal, or might as well signal, busting the AfCFTA, as it were, even before it eventually takes off?
Essentially, that's true. I mean, we are talking on a dead on arrival scenario here. That's essentially what you're looking at, because you're looking at the West, the French Union are going to have a trade deal negotiation with French, right? Nigeria will have its own negotiation with the United Kingdom and the United States. What does this mean for the Continental Free Trade Agreement? Oh, by the way, don't forget, there is China in play here. Big player here that is likely to scuttle the agreement. The China factor is a very, very serious one.
So the AGOA, which is the African Growth and Opportunities Act, is about wrapping up. How had Kenya fared within this program while it lasted?
I think that AGOA has not brought the original intended benefits to Kenya, by the way. One of the things was that it was supposed to allow unfettered, unhindered, unencumbered access of Kenya's textile products in the US market. But there was also the condition that the raw materials are supposed to be sourced locally. And so it was going to have a beneficial impact to Kenya as a whole, because then you're going to contract farmers to grow cotton. This cotton is going to be used by textile factories who eventually have a market in the US. So it was going to have some trickle down. It has never had a trickle down, by the way. What has happened is that most of the players in this act, instead, they've been importing cotton, pre-finished cotton materials from China, and passing them off as they've been sourced locally in Kenya. And this has happened for a very long time. Kenya has put up significant infrastructure just to meet AGOA, to take advantage of the AGOA Act. We have an export processing zone that literally operates like a different jurisdiction. They have significant tax benefits, tax incentives. They it's another tax jurisdiction within the same country. And there's so much concession that the government has given to export processing zone producers. But I don't think I've tallied that the amount of investment that the government has Kenya has put into AGOA Act vis-a-vis the actual benefits. I think there's a dislocation. It doesn't reconcile.
So how important, George, is the United States to the Kenyan economy for this move to be made by President Kenyatta's administration, knowing what it should have done within the EAC and within the broader AfCFTA, and without, taking anyone along, arrived in Washington, even within the pandemic and whatever, and continue to have conversations and bilateral trade talks. So it looks like Nairobi is desperate here, is it?
Yeah, I think that, yes, a number of benefits. I mean, there's a historical relationship here. It goes way back. Kenya has benefited a lot from the United States having its military assets positioned in Kenya, and a significant amount of military assets positioned in Kenya because they see Kenya as a strategic security partner. And the second thing is that US is a big source of tourists into the, tourism is a big thing in Kenya. It's a big foreign exchange earner for the country. So United States is a big source of tourists. United States is also a big funder of a number of programs in Kenya that are run by the government, both by the private sector and the public sector. So if you look at that, and also historically, after independence, the United States also trained a lot of manpower that was used to run the government after independence, because especially in areas like health, there's a lot of capacity building that the United States gave Kenya. So there's a historical relationship with this. So over time, Kenya has viewed, the United States has been an important ally for Kenya. And that's why you see what you're talking about, we're taking it very, very seriously.
Interesting.
But I don't like that. I think that also the United States has also got a lot of criticism on Kenya, and which is why over time Kenya shifted towards China. And it's interesting that they're coming back to the United States.
Great. I guess we've got to wait for the Kenyan team to arrive back in Nairobi, and then we'll have this conversation again to see what they bring back to the table. Thank you so much, Judge BODO of CALLSTREET in Nairobi, Director in charge of Research and Analytics. Thank you very much for today. Have a pleasant evening.